This is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode. Today I'm going to be talking with Lauren Bradley. We're going to be talking about biomagnetism, minerals, and reclaiming your health sovereignty. So this is going to be an absolutely epic conversation. Even though we're bombarded with all these EMFs, at least they could give us a good signal, you know?
Oh, right. I know, right? It's going to be, excuse me, we'll look back on this as like remedial sort of tin cans with strings when we have the higher tech, as
Exactly.
Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius over the next 20 years is going to drop bombs. So that'll be exciting.
And hopefully the tech that we'll have in the future will be like with harmonious frequencies, you know, because there's no reason why we can't use like good frequencies to have this connection right now rather than harmful EMFs. It doesn't make any sense because they're just choosing a specific bandwidth of, you know, a specific wave to carry this information. They can carry some healing frequencies. Imagine that all of us could be healed while we are using our technology. How epic would that be?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good way to sort of start out our conversation, because it all starts, the creativity of that all really starts inside of us. And so what you just outlined is definitely possible when we shift our perspective, and we shift our perspective on the inside, and then it kind of 100, you know, the 100th monkey collective frequency kind of changes the direction of the wave of experience.
Yes. So what you're saying is that the more minds align with a specific vision, the more like we are putting a specific intention out there, which is generating a frequency, which is altering our trajectory towards one direction or another.
Absolutely. And you just kind of laid out the premise of how I work with biomagnetism, how biomagnetism and my healing modality of biomagnetism and quantum bioenergetics works in that framework.
So let's begin. What is biomagnetism? Explain to everyone who doesn't know. And also, I'm going to learn a lot today as well.
Yeah, so biomagnetism, excuse me, biomagnetism was discovered by Dr. Goiz, a man in Mexico who was an actual like physical physician, and he realized that magnetic charges of negative and positive polarity that create a torus field could harmonize on different parts of the body pH distortions and pH levels, and therefore address microbial equations in the body, because excuse me, we're kind of like a little meat suit. I mean, this is just, you know, a metaphor. We're like a little meat suit that zips up a bunch of microorganisms and different beings, and then we're sort of the oversoul of this collective, right? So he's worked on it in the physical realm of working towards those pH distortions. A lot of times people think that pH, you know, you'll see kind of like, I think I posted a meme last week where I was like, guys, it doesn't work like that. You're not just acidic, or you're not just alkaline. You can't just drink water and then have it be different. You are like an entire cosmos inside. And that's like saying that outer space is too cold. You know, for example, it's just one temperature. It's not one temperature. There's like different pockets. And if you zoom out and you look at everything from that really kind of like macro scale, but then apply it to yourself, your pH is very much multifaceted. And it's multifaceted in like different, I like to explain it very animated, like different neighborhoods of microbes, right? And they're working symbiotically, miniature symbiosis, and then it gradually expands outward to the symbiosis of you, as a total, right? So it's like looking at those mini microbial or those mini equations and taking magnetic frequency, so you've got negative and positive, and zeroing out and then harmonizing, so the equation of a microbial like neighborhood starts to normalize. So that's kind of the premise. And then my teachers studied with Dr. Goyes, but then took it into the quantum field and the quantum arena. And that's why I say bioenergetics, quantum bioenergetics, because I'm looking at matter and you and those microbes that I just spoke of, and then looking multidimensionally at all the different layers of energetics that actually create your reality and your holographic experience. So we then look at why those what is the you know, everything is frequency, energy, frequency, and vibration, right? So why is that vibration occurring? And most likely the vibration is occurring because you are having certain perspectives of your holographic reality, and then your emotions and your frequencies start to dictate those arrangements. And then we can look at everything. We can look at why the microbes are happening, but look at it in the total etheric level, or in the energetic level, or in the spiritual level. And then let me just take you one step further. We can start to look at our evolutionary biology, but from the standpoint of memory and inheritance of memory, memory creation and inheritance of memory. So that memory, it acts as a pattern and a template that creates the holographic projection that then facilitates everything at scale. So it facilitates those microbes and then all the other elements all around you to create your experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just going to try and break it down for the audience and also for myself. So
Yeah.
basically what you're saying is that, like, at the beginning you talked about the magnets, right? And you talked about how the magnetic field of the magnets is helping to alter the pH inside of the body, which is therefore changing the environment which those microbes reside in, which is then making it more coherent. And now the energy is flowing from the quantum level all the way down to the physical level. I guess it's weird to say that because it's like all connected, right? It's weird to say physical and quantum because the cells are quantum, like they're all operating like all the time. The physical things that we can see with our eyes are operating constantly, you know,
Yes.
all the time on the quantum level, and their time doesn't really exist. It's just like now. It's like this is like the only moment that has ever existed, right? And will exist, and then it just keeps on going like this. But then I guess there is sort of some memory that you just mentioned that is stored somewhere, I guess in those microorganisms or even in the DNA of the microorganisms. And then
Absolutely. Your
and
DNA.
then that's my DNA. Yes. So basically, then you basically are able to pass that down to your offspring. Specifically, is it specifically like through the mother, or is it also through the father as well?
Both.
Hmm.
Both. Right. Because I look at it like when you inherit your template, right? You inherit, like, if I looked at a picture of your father and your grandfather and your great grandfather, you would have similar features, physicality that passes down through the lineage, the code of you. That's why we all sort of like look like our relatives. But in addition to that, we are like reprints of our incarnational line, but we're the apex point of that incarnation. So we are experiencing all almost a continuation of our lineage, right? That's sometimes why you'll say, oh, wow, I come from a family of horse breeders, just for an example, right? Like my grandpa was a horse breeder, my great grandpa was a horse breeder, like that kind of a thing. Or sometimes with my clients, I'll see, for an example, let's say you have an issue in your holographic reality that you are experiencing a relationship where you become the caretaker, right? And then this is your experience as a married person. Well, when you were growing up, your parents experienced that same dynamic, and then you can look down the line and that same dynamic repeats itself because we're spirally experiencing things and we are incarnationally experiencing things. But it also gets into epigenetics. So if you grew up in that holographic field, you will recreate and reprint that holographic field based on your surroundings. But it's also an inheritance in your DNA, because sometimes it could be like 10 family lines like down where you don't have memory in this life of a recall of that experience, but it's embedded in the DNA template. But the DNA template's just like a it's like a script, and there's like kind of a projector, I would say, like an energetic outside of that, just to put it in terms that we can grasp, because we're in really expansive territory here. It took me like a year to really even explain what was going on when I was like working with somebody.
This is definitely quite in depth for sure. So I can totally see that. So basically, what you're saying is that the environment that we are placed in can sort of activate specific genes, like like in an epigenetic way, that can bring about certain experiences that we have stored in our DNA that maybe were not part of our life, but they're part of our parents or our grandparents' life, and now they're manifesting in real time because we are putting ourselves in an environment, external or internal, to create this situation, and then now it's manifesting and we don't know what's happening or where it's come from. So I want you to explain to me, because you talked about the magnets, and then you talked about the quantum way of manipulating the pH. So when you talk about that, like how does or first explain to me, how does the magnet itself alter the pH inside of the body?
So in the magnetic field, it is reestablishing the proper energetic torus field, and in the proper energetic torus field, we can harmonize the coherence, and the coherence of the pH is just one example. It could be the coherence of a stuck memory. It could be the you can look at it in multiple different ways. So it's basically establishing coherence. And then, so let me take you to an equation first and foremost. And I'm just going to make it simple so we can see it. So trillions of times a second, we are going from matter to antimatter to matter to antimatter. And there's this a baseline, and that baseline is like a 0 point, right? And as we flicker like a film strip, we are reprinting reality, printing, reprinting, reprinting, right? So I think it's 20 trillion times a second, you have a chance to reprint a new reality based on your perspective, because in the quantum field, it's the wave, and then we make it into what we view becomes a particle. So you keep reprinting. So in that constant film strip and constant opportunity to reprint your reality, but most of us don't. We just remember what happened the trillionth of a second ago, and we're like, oh, well, we're still in the same movie, so we might as well reprint the same thing.
Yeah.
And the torus field in all different aspects of reality, pH being one of them, just continues to reprint. But when we reestablish that coherence magnetically with, you know, that with negative and positive in balance, then the distortion has an opportunity for you to reprint a new next moment, but it's like a 20 trillionth of a next moment. And you can insert your direction and you can start balancing things, but then we can look at it like at a bigger scale, like, oh, we're rebalancing the pH, okay, you know, or we're rebalancing a perspective of a memory that is like a coded pattern that tells you to reprint again the same issue or the same experience, but we're breaking it down, right? And this is kind of how the internet works. It's like we're like repatterning. It's called 1024 QAM. That's the name of the equation, and it's a pretty simple, it's not even really math, it's just patterning. And I've mentioned it multiple times on Quantum Connection Roundtable, and I really think that once we grasp this again, we're like, oh wow, every trillionth of a second I have an opportunity consciously to change the holographic reality of my particles at all scale.
Yeah, I totally get it. I hope the audience gets that as well, because it's so important to understand that our perception is literally changing our reality, and our awareness about ourselves and what we're thinking in our head gives us the opportunity to be able to redirect our lives towards one direction or another. And just that shift in thought, and especially if you carry that with action as well afterwards, you know, that you put it into action, the thought, you are really now changing that trajectory of that path that you were repeating. Now you've broken out of it, and now you've started a completely new path. And it's almost like, you know, when you start the day off completely differently compared to what you normally do in the morning, you find that throughout the day you do things that you've never done before. And you feel like by the end of the day, wow, today was such a great day. I did so many different things, but it wasn't intended. You started off by doing just a simple routine that you normally do in the morning, just a little bit differently. And now all of a sudden, by the end of the day, you've done 1,000 things different. And you feel like almost more in vitality, which would make sense that maybe it's doing something on an energetic level, you know, on a cellular level as well, changing the energetics of your body.
Yes, when you said vitality, it's that magnetic torus field that is in balance and not off kilter or so for example, that vitality, like I'm not looking at the microbes from the lens of biomagnetism and being like, oh gosh, you're infected, this is germ theory and we need to get these out of here. I am looking at it as like a symbiotic relationship of everything working together, and I'm like, oh, there's too much of this, there's too little of that, and like when we go like this, then we're harmonizing. For example, you have E. coli in your system right now. It's in the proper place. It's in proper right relationship with all other microbes, and it is doing its job. But when it gets out of balance and maybe like it's too much, and then it travels to somewhere that it's not supposed to be in your cosmology, it starts to be a big problem, right? So we want to dial it back down to what it's supposed to do, for example. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not, when I'm working with a client and I'm working with them and I start finding different microbes, I'm like, listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing you with these itch situations. I'm actually tuning into the energetic and the vibration. And this might be something that doesn't even exist in this quote unquote now. It might exist in your great, 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 great grandfather, for example. And it is the frequency wave. And so it starts to get really kind of heady and trippy. And like, you know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily like, this is good, this is bad. We need to delete these microbes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because it's about the terrain, you know, we need to balance the terrain rather than think of it that something is bad in the system. I think a lot of people actually still don't know that everything in the system that we think has come from somewhere was already pretty much within us, like most of the times. And it's just that imbalance, even whether that is in the pH or the energetic level or whatever has caused it first. I guess it's a bidirectional relationship that can occur, you know, energetic or physical, and it can just, you know, manifest or go both ways and affect us emotionally, psychologically, and the other way around. And it can keep on repeating the cycle until we change one of those things that you said, that every second we have like the opportunity to be able to change our course, our path. And so, yeah, like when we are in balance, so our energy is flowing and our system is in coherence, then all of these microorganisms that already exist in our system can be in perfect unison, and they can go, the ones that we don't necessarily want them to be overabundant, they go into more of a dormant state, and the good ones, you know, begin to flourish as we think of good ones and bad ones. You know, the problem is that we still, when we think about probiotics or germ theory, there is this idea that some are bad and some are good, when in reality, clearly all have their purpose, right? For example, when you think about parasites, aren't parasites there to basically eat you when your body dies?
Well, I mean, it starts to get really crazy. And if I think about it, because I'm like a Virgo rising and I can see these details, and then I'll like kind of fixate on details. I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Like, what's happening? Oh, right? You start to get freaked out, or at least I do. Sometimes I think about like, you know, what's in the water that I'm brushing my teeth. But anyway, I digress. So, yeah, sometimes it's a neutralization, right? Like parasites do clean up things, but then also they steal your energy as well. And we can go into the energetics of imbalanced, not bidirectional relationship that show up in our holographic reality that then outpicture as a parasitic situation microbially. So that's different. So what we want to do is we want to like harmonize that. So I'll give you an example. I was working with somebody yesterday, and our focus was to work on true cause of what's causing lack of support, lack of balance, then or lack of abundance. So I ask the body with kinesiology, what's causing this, and then the body takes me almost into a forest of information. But the body has certain order of operation, right? And it wants to unpack the issue and transmute the issue in a certain way, multidimensionally. So, for example, now we have this issue. What's true cause of lack of nutritional support, like lack of nourishment? The body took me straight away to a microbial equation inside of the body, wanted to harmonize it because it was stealing nutrients, or it wasn't a balanced equation. And then from there, we could get to the emotional aspects that brought forth the microbial equation in the first place. And that took us all the way to the energetics of her experience in the womb, for example. So we had to work in that experience that set up the template for her of lack of nourishment, but it was multidimensional. But we started with an equation, a microbial equation that was holding that energy, frequency, and vibration in as so, right? Because when you have your emotions and your thoughts, you make them so, and then all the elements around you, including the microbes inside of you, become to they come together to project that truth that you are creating by your perspective of experiencing something. That in this case, it was experiencing a lack of nourishment energetically in the, that's where the body went, in the womb. Now, if we had another session, the body would be like, okay, great, we got rid of that womb trauma. Now we have to go deeper to something that's in the lineage, because there's layers and layers to our reality, and the body wants to process in a certain order. And sometimes if you're like, I mean, I'm always like, all right, this is great, we're doing all of this, but can we just have the source code and just get back to just perfection here? You know, like, this is going to take us billions of hours to unpack all of the reality that we as infinite beings have already experienced. You know what I'm saying? But the body in this now moment needs to unpack certain things in a sequential order so that you can digest it and then create your homeostasis from, it's almost like I say, it's funny, what's the truth? The truth is that you're always perfect, but then you have all these overcoats on of your experience. So you can't just be like, okay, I just want to be perfect again. It's like, you got to take this item off, then you have to take that item off, and then you have to take this item off, and then you take all these overcoats off, and you're like, oh, underneath it all, I was still perfect. Okay, great. You know, so it works in sequence and multi-layered. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. Yeah, that it's not just as simple as just addressing one thing, but because the root cause can be multifaceted, like you say, multi-layered. So it's not
so simple as, okay, just going into the body and just trying to deal with the body, but it's, you just have to
deal with it on the energetic level, and to go back in time, you know, to our past, that we basically, our memories that have been stored within us, that whether we are conscious or unconscious, most of the times we are unconscious. That's why it's the unconscious programming that is running there in the background, which is actually causing us, you know, the discomforts and the issues. So I guess maybe I should ask you, like, what kind of...
Let me say one thing. So what you just said, so now we're in the torus field, and then we've got a wormhole, right? There's like a wormhole. So on the bottom right here, this is the disrupted frequency, the illness. But then on the top, as you go through that 0 points, and now we're at that equation, that 1024 QAM, but we're looking at it this way. We're going from this reality through the wormhole to the other reality, the reality where that doesn't exist anymore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's literally what we're doing. So when you say, when somebody says, see yourself well, and then travel to that place, we're going through that wormhole, through that 0 point, where we're going matter, antimatter, matter, antimatter, and we are going back into a new aspect of holographic reality that we're going to reprint.
Rebirthing ourselves to a new state of being, you know, by changing the energetic and therefore affecting our physical cellular level. So what kind of things do you see, for example, in your work? Because I think that many people are thinking that, does this apply to me or not? I guess this applies like to everybody, right? Since we are all energetic beings, we're all impacted on some level. Even myself, even though like I'm a movement specialist and I specialize in mobility and all this good stuff, I still have issues, you know, sometimes with some of my hips or my lower back, or some, you know, some little things that I would like them to be better. You know, it's not, everyone strives to be better than before, and especially myself, that I'm really into movement. I want to be super good, right? So I'm always aiming to become better and better and better, to keep on improving myself. So, but I noticed that there are some things that no matter what I do, they just don't go away. So then all of this that you're saying makes total sense, that it could be something way, way deeper, like underlying everyone's issues that they're encountering, whether that's like physical pain in their joints or some form of like sickness, illness, you know?
I'll give you anecdotal, because I have like I'll give you a personal anecdotal story, because mine is very, very intense and I've dissected it quite in depth. So my let me just give you an example so you grasp it and you can see the depth of this. So my mother was adopted, right? That is a trauma, right? And it didn't start with her. It went all the way down the lineage. So the man that was her father was named Thomas Lupo. It's like a what's the word? It's a fable, right? We've got this guy, he's a fable. Oh, it's a man. His name is Thomas Lupo, which is Italian for wolf, right? And he left my grandmother and left her pregnant and ditched her, right? So that happened, and my mom was, you know, in that experience in the womb. Fast forward, I don't even know my grandmother. I never met her because my mother was adopted. And in my life, I met a man named Thomas Wolfe, was his middle name, Thomas Wolfe. And I was like, oh, I want to marry this guy. And he left me at a coffee shop and never spoke to me again. And I was like, what the heck is this? And then it tumbled me down into like 20 years of self-reflection, or 15 years of self-reflection. Yeah. And I was like, whose life am I living here? Is this my life, or is this grandma's life? Like, what the heck is going on? Right? Yeah. So sometimes we don't even realize, I mean, from my experience, excuse me, from my experience, it was pretty obvious with this name giving me a clue, where I was like, wait a minute. And I didn't know, when I was like in the experience, I didn't know yet that was a reprint, not even my reprint, someone else's experience, but someone as the older version of me, my grandmother, right? Having this, so I had to transmute that experience with my awareness. And in that transmutation, I also heal her and her entire experience, and everyone else that came before her. So we, as the apex point of our lineage, we're the apex point of consciousness. When we heal ourselves and heal that trauma that repeats over and over and over until somebody heals it, then it starts healing everything backwards in our lineage and all of our descendants in the future.
I love it. Yeah. So is this like the same thing as saying that, you know, you are breaking those karmic bonds, yes, and those lines, and like healing, and now therefore the future does not need to suffer because you have been the one who has said, okay, now I'm going to be the change in this family line, right? Or whatever is going on. And then you're just going to create a new reality from here forward.
Yeah.
For everyone else and for yourself.
Yes. And because there is nothing but the now, and none of that actually technically exists, but it does, because we're in this like ever present now that's like shifting and transforming. It's all happening at once. And then you know what I'm saying? So then we get into the weeds, yeah, of like, you know, yes, like, wow, man. So then what?
So are you saying that like all of the past basically exists because it's kind of repeating itself, but as soon as you heal the past almost doesn't exist anymore? It's almost as if like the past is merging with the now, and now you are creating the new movie, the new film, you know?
Yes, yes. And it's based on a shift in perspective. So sometimes I will ask the body in a session, like, where is this coming from? Okay, it's coming, let's go back to the other example. It's coming in from the an experience in the womb. I will go back to that point. We're going to go through that torus field. I go back to that point and I bring both versions, the version of the client now and that version, to a different, like, reprint trillions of times a second, and then I witness it, and then they can witness it. So therefore they shift their reality, they shift their holographic experience in one of those trillionth of a second, and everything thereafter then shifts and changes after a session. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'll say to
Absolutely.
them, just
No,
pay attention to
no,
your
definitely. Yeah, it definitely work. I totally get what you're saying. It's just that I think that some individuals who are listening right now might be like a little bit puzzled, but I think if they really rewind, they will be able to like, understand what we're saying. What Lauren is saying is that at any moment we can alter our reality and shift our reality and the state of our health from our perspective, right? And from our awareness. I mean, we're not saying, we're not doctors, we're not giving medical advice or anything like this, but, what we understand is that on a quantum level, everything is existing right now, and there is basically no past. And if we choose to heal the past, we can heal the now,
yes.
basically.
And you have to find it's almost like computer code, but it's it's like biofield code. So you have to find where is that original file, that original perspective shift or experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that original, you find the original file, and then you can, delete the file.
Yeah, or rather like rewrite the file.
Yeah, you're recoding.
Yes, amazing. And so how does yes, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, so in my experience, and of course, I just really only told you like in my own anecdotal experience, just a little bit of it. There was a lot of physical rearranging that had to happen, symptomology, experience where I'm like, why is my reproductive system breaking down? What is going on? There's layers to it, right? Lots of layers. But in my experience that was like pretty thorough, I realized that healing is a yes and equation. So yes, it's these physical, quantum biological, epigenetic repatterning. You repattern the light, you repattern your your metabolics, you repattern your mineral balance, do everything in the physicality. But then when you can't turn over the needle, right, you're like, why am I still unwell? But I'm doing all the things. I'm waking up at sunrise. I am, I should be getting better. Why am I not getting better? Because there's a frequency, like harmonic, inside of your holographic reality or expectation, that it's an and equation. So yes, you need to adhere to the light codes in your environment and your emotional and also like patterned frequency coding, right? So sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, you can solve that with sunshine, but you can't, because you need to work that perspective and transmute that perspective so that you can then receive the light codes.
Yes.
You know what
Yeah. We can all agree that at some point we've done like many things right in our lives, and we have hit some plateaus or some walls in our health journey where we feel like we could be doing something more, but we don't know what that thing is. And I think, or I know that this is like where it's at, like it's on the energetic level, because it's very hard to understand. And that's why I wanted to have you on to talk about this, because we need to educate, and I need to learn as well how all of this is working, because clearly the frequencies, the vibrations, the energy is altering the very physical reality that we are witnessing right now in this present moment.
Yes. And also that explanation that I just gave was very oriented towards the past. But when you orient from this now moment, in that accordion is of, of the now, how the accordion of experience opens up seemingly past and future. I'll give you another example. I was walking one day, and I was walking on a bridge, and it was down into like, it was quite high, and I stumbled and just sort of kind of stumbled on my foot, and I was like, whoa, I could have fallen down and died. And I like kind of freaked out, right? And I was like, wow, I'm really having an interesting reaction and a freak out to this moment of just tripping. But on a bridge. I hit a memory. Now we could look at it from going in the past, or as we go forward in our lives, or seemingly go forward, we run into memories. We that's when our DNA turns on and off, these kind of switches that people talk about, right?
Yeah.
So this example, I ran into a memory and I was like, whoa, there was a time space point where I fell down the bridge, and I kind of like, after I got home and I was like, I'm never walking on that bridge again. Oh my gosh, that was so scary. And then I was like, wow, where is this coming from? And I was like, okay, this is coming from a memory. And I just, tripped up a memory. And there's a memory maybe tomorrow that I'll trip up, and the next day, all of those things. So when you trip up these memories, sometimes that memory code could trip up a disease or like a total life trajectory, right? And in that moment I was like, okay, I got to travel back. Okay, I got to go back to wherever this is. I got to delete this memory because I don't need this memory anymore. And wow, I just kind of ran into it, just just walking home, and I was like, whoa, right? And then when I investigated it, it was a stuck experience from somewhere in the field.
Yeah. So that experience that you had in the present moment, like, triggered something from the past, basically, for you to revisit this memory.
Yeah.
And to deal with it.
I could actually go into the future, like in a session, we could look at, like, let's say I'm having a session with you, I could look at Andreas's past triggers, but then I could also ask, did this trigger happen when he was 65? And we could go into the future.
That's
and then,
cool.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what we can go this way or that way, because we're looking at the whole thing and it's all kind of happening at once.
What do you think aging is from your perspective?
From my perspective, I think aging is losing, dropping losing rhythmic sight of recycling, of regeneration, right? And there's programming in the DNA, I think, for that, which is very irritating. I'm like trying to find it, like, in which chromosome is this recorded, right? But it's oxidative stress, for example, is the inability to manage your, like, if you look at it from a mineral perspective, right? The inability to manage your oxygen metabolism by recycling everything that you need, and then you kind of get off balance. And then it's like iron overload, for example, oxidative stress, and now you're aging. But if you're recycling, we can look at it from metabolics too. If you're not going from catabolism to anabolism, then recatabolizing, and then rebuilding with anabolism over and over and over, you're going to stay in that recycled moment, right? But if you start to lose balance of these equations, which are actually like this, then it's out of coherence, and then we're going to age, right? I mean,
so that's why it makes sense why, like, you want to kind of go by the day and night cycles, respect the circadian rhythms, especially when it comes to your eating habits as well. You want to eat when it's light out, you want to stop eating when it's dark outside. So then in the winter time, you have more of that catabolic state when you're not eating. So your body's cleaning itself up. It's like, tidying everything that has not had time to do so much in the summertime, because in the summer we have more of a bigger eating window and a smaller, like, fasting window and, sleeping time. So it's this yin and yang between the seasons, and also the day and night cycles, that needs to be fully respected. And I guess now in our modern reality, our modern world that we are living in, that we have an opportunity to create, by the way, because just because we are living in a modern world doesn't mean that we have to live in that modern world. We can create the reality that we want. We all have technology, we have lighting, we have darkness if we want it to be, so we can create like a safe space and a sanctuary for our body to live in alignment to its primal or original roots, for it to function optimally still.
Yes, absolutely. I always think about it. I'm like, wow, well, we've got these phones. This is going to expand. And in that expansion, we already have been there, and our bodies evolutionarily are evolving to handle it. So we might, instead of going back, like, I don't think we're all going to be Laura Ingalls on the range here with, you know, a little lantern and that's it, because whatever's going to happen in the next 20 years, just, you know, that is the next thing in our macro expansion.
Yeah.
We're going to have to evolutionarily harmonize with, you know, and in that hormetic response to, right? So, so I'm starting to, I'm starting to see how like the emotions and the bio field can interact with even the discordant things and transmute them, because that's how our species has continued on, right? Even though we've had like these like moments like, oh, now we're in the Industrial Revolution, we've got like these street lights and we never had that. What the heck, right? Our body has to adapt. We're in that process of adapting, and we're going through this experience that isn't very comfortable, but we will prevail. The body is always seeking balance, and it is always finding that homeostasis to carry us forward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I totally believe that as well, that eventually the DNA and the body will find a way to be able to, you know, thrive in more harsh environments. And I guess, you know, this is just evolution that happens over time. And it's like when you look at aliens, for example, or when you think about aliens, I don't know, some people believe in aliens and some people don't. But let's speculate that they do exist. And then when you look at them, they just look like humans who have living in more harsher conditions. They have less muscle mass. They look gray because they are, you know, they've lost a little bit of their life force, you know, and they've got bigger eyes so that they can perceive, I don't know, better, or receive more light or something like this. Maybe there is just something going on with our technological evolution, which is showing us that maybe we're heading in that direction. And I have heard some interesting podcasts where people say that aliens are the reason why there has been some sightings, or they're trying to visit us to give us sort of hints or information, or some people have been given information about them, is to inform us that we don't maybe necessarily want to go down the technological evolution road, because eventually we will lose our humanness and they regret going down that road. So it's kind of like we are them in the future, and they're coming back to warn us that don't go down there, because this is what you're going to end up looking like. You're going to be able to travel the universe, but it's going to suck.
Right. Well, you know, and it all, I think, one of the biggest you know, where does the torus field on the macro in the human experience exist? It's kind of at the heart center, right? And what you just explained might be a trajectory of losing connection to that heart center. So I don't like when people say, oh, this is us in the future. And it's like, no. They're coming back to say, whoops, we forgot the heart center. Reteach us the heart center, because we forgot about that. Right. And so the you know, this heart center allows us to be the Bentleys of the, you know, intergalactic, cosmic, multidimensional experience, right? It's the coherence of the torus field that is the heart center.
It's your dragon. Your dragon is giving you something.
Yeah, my dragon is. He's concurring.
I love it how you call him your dragon, because, you know, he does actually look like a dragon.
Yes. He's like, how do I get to hang out with her? I'm a dragon. I'm gonna be in this dog costume.
Oh, he's so awesome. Yeah, I tend to think of different things and situations like this as well. Like when I see certain animals or certain humans, I sort of see them as different things, not just as they are. I see beyond who they are, you know, kind of like through them. And maybe I see them as a color, or as like an animal, or anything.
Yes. So
you're
you're revealing yourself synesthesia, and you're also you know, where you can see them as that your senses overlap, and you can see more of the interworkings of the multidimensionality of everything.
I tend not to think about it in the moment. It's just more like afterwards, you know. It's just like yeah, once your body's had time to process it, sort of starts to feel like, oh yeah. It's what they also say, that, you know, that their dogs look very much like their owners as well. And when I go out for walks, I tend to look at the dog, and then I look at the owner. I'm like, yeah, it kind of does look like the owner, you know. It's crazy.
I'm like, do we look alike? Do you think we look alike?
And I think it also depends. Sometimes it's not like always like perfect, but you know.
Yeah, but you can kind of see the energetic match, right?
The energetic match, yeah. Yeah, in the style of the walking, you know, the sound, or, you know, there's something to it, you know, where the owner and the dog is matching, because I guess the dog or the pet is taking the energy of the owner as well. So it's sort of this symbiotic relationship that they have, because the pet trusts in the owner that they will take care of them, and that they will feed them, and that they will give them shelter, and so they are sharing this, you know, bond.
Yes, and it's like aggregation, right? Like energy kind of like finds its match, and at the end of it all, I mean, to unpack everything that I've you know, my research on like the energy of like, why does biomagnetism work? Like, what am I doing here? To unpack it all and to really keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper, I am studying that it all is boiled down to like the elemental table, which we've been looking at that elemental table from a very static kind of like, you know, physical, this is it, it's in a box, it's a square. And now that table of elements is also, we're learning that it's corresponding with sound and with harmonics. And so at the base of everything in reality, it's light and sound in an elemental arrangement, almost like little pixeled particles that start to create all aspects of everything, including yourself and your biology, and then everything in your holographic reality. So at the base of it all, it's a light and sound in arrangement, arranging matter for our experience. You know, and so it might be an experience of you and your pet, or you and your and all of it.
I heard once like Robert Edward Grant on one podcast, he was saying how light or sound or shape, they all have their, you can find the sound in a shape, you can find the color in a sound, and it goes like all the way around. So when you, for example, draw something on a piece of paper, like let's say like a hexagon or like a honeycomb, you know, shape, you are also creating the vibration or like the frequency of that honeycomb shape, but you're also creating the color that corresponds with that shape as well, because it's all frequency. They all share the same frequency, which you're all creating, because it's existing not just in the shape, it's existing on all levels. And what is sound? Sound is vibration, it's frequency, you know, and then light is vibration and frequency. And then shape, when you start to understand that when you start vibrating something, some molecules on a specific frequency, then you start to get an arrangement. And then that arrangement is creating the structure, which is the geometry. So it's absolutely mind-blowing when you actually understand, wow, my voice has so much power. Like, you know, what I say, or what I say to myself, even without opening my mouth, because that is sending out this resonance, this vibration, this frequency, this signal out into the universe. And then we are creating in real time what you just mentioned. And this is what also, like, our hearts magnetic field is sending out this frequency. It's creating the reality, right? So by us being able to alter our nervous system states and alter our heart-brain coherence, we're now able to also alter our physical structure and reality based on everything that we just said.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And everything that magnetic spin, when it's off, it creates incoherence, and when it's when it's on and balanced, it creates coherence. You know, and so I look at it where we are. It's basically like a paint box of you know, it's paints and your paintbrush that are painting the canvas of your experience, but the paints and paintbrush and canvas are all light and sound in different you know, configurations, and then on those configurations of light and sound create the canvas, create the expression, the hologram. So in my sessions, I'll look at holograms and create a new hologram configuration with multiple magnets. So now I'm dealing with like multiple aspects of light and sound, and I will like kind of, you know, it sort of sounds a little bit Harry Potter-esque when I'm like, okay, I'm going to create this hologram for you, and then the hologram's going to run in your reality for the next, let's see how many times, you know, your body needs it. Is it minutes, hours, days, weeks, months? Okay, 2 weeks, for example, let's say. And then in those 2 weeks, I trigger that hologram to trigger with the pattern that you have, that you're in. So an emotional trigger point. Like, let's say you're constantly in the emotion of despair, and it's kind of your set point. Here, I'll give you an example. When I was very sick, my I was in it's emotions and sensations. So emotions and sensations in the same category will trigger your holographic experience, right? So when I was setting up a hologram for myself, I was experiencing a lot of anemia. And I have lists of these emotions and sensations, and then I use kinesiology to say which one is most appropriate. And my, you know, when I was setting up holograms for myself to transmute my light and sound, I asked what would be appropriate for, like, let's say it wants it for 2 weeks, like the repatterning for 2 weeks. My body chose anemia because I was going to experience anemia in the next 5 minutes, and then the next 10 minutes, and then, you know, a million times a day, because I was experiencing that sensation. And in that sensation, instead of it walking me towards less health, we shift the perspective through that torus field, so it walks you towards health. So every time you experience your sensation in that holographic reality, you organize light and sound for your transmutation, not more illness, because it's already happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you, like, when you are helping, assisting somebody to create this new hologram, this new reality that they want to embody, or that you want to assist their body to embody, you know, to the new reality, the program that you want them to run on? How do you create that hologram? Is that like in your mind's eye? Like, do you write this down? Like, what does the process look like?
So it's kind of, we're commanding light and sound, right? Okay. So we can command it, and we can also, we're using commands for the biocomputer that is you. And I'm kind of working as like a computer programmer in a way, so that I'm recommanding your biofield by working with the paints and paintbrushes and canvas that is light and sound elements at the kind of like quantum you know, when you're looking at everything in scale, you can say, is it cellular? Is it tissue? Is it organ? Is it system? Is it energetic? All the way up that way? Or from the cell, you can go down to the atom, you can go down to the subatomic particles, and then you can go down, you go right to the light and sound of origination of all of the particles. So now I'm at the like base of this fractal perspective, right? So like, where's the original paints here for this reality? Let's go. Let's work with those paints and that canvas and rearrange the holographic experience for more healing or for, transmuting a certain experience. Like, for example, I wanted to transmute my grandmother's experience, and that I happen to reprint, and I'm like, okay, what elements are at play here, subatomically, causing my reality to outpicture exactly this, like what's that? What, you know what I'm saying? Is this? I hope I'm getting
I'm getting you. I'm totally getting you. I'm just trying to envision the process. I totally understand everything that you just said about every single part of the process. I think
seriously?
I'm just missing
how I do it.
Yeah.
So I'm commanding. You can command. So let's go back to like.
Is that like mentally commanding? Like you write it down? Do you repeat the words like in your mind? Like what's the process?
So there's a command, and then I'm also using magnets, but I'm using magnets on a diagram. So I have a diagram of the human body that I connect your human body to, or your energetic body to, through the you can travel the infinity wave, right? And that's just, this part is the middle part of that infinity wave. And so I can connect, through the principles of quantum physics, I can connect and connect your body via what I use as a diagram of your body, and then also command that I can command those myself to put those magnetic frequencies where I'm putting those magnetic frequencies. And then also we can tap into the biofield, different configurations, like I'm biocomputing, where I'm saying, instead of anemia, you're making me sick right now, anemia, or you're making me discordant, not harmonic, anemia, use this frequency, and I want anemia to make me well, to make me anemia, right? So I'm flipping it upside down. I'm inverting the experience, not inverting it, but reverting the inverted experience by command, and commanding the biofield. Because if you look at, like, what is it? I'm not really familiar with the exact phrase, but it's like, in the beginning there was the word, and in the word, right? So you're commanding sound. We are manifestational beings, right? And and then there's another, the Matthew 18, where two or more are gathered, I am there, right? That is us both looking at a particle out of the wave together and affirming it for each other and creating a reality. So when you're in a session with me, I'm like, okay, let's look at the wave. Let's command it to be this way. Let's both look at it at the exact same time. And now it is so, right? So it's not magic. It's actually our inner power that, if you read the quantum manual, that is the big book that everybody reads in the world, right? The biggest book club on the planet. It is a manual that basically tells you all these things, that you can be like, oh, wow, okay, so I have power to do that. Cool. You know what I mean?
No, I understand now, because basically you are using like a combination of different modalities together at the same time to sort of channel and connect the energy, connect to the person who you're working with, and are they live with you, like present, like on a, because you can do this distant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what
It's
I
just,
mean is like, what I mean live is like you and me are
yeah,
right now, meaning that
so
do they
like,
have to be like there while you are doing it, and they can affirm to you, and you can both be, is it more powerful in that way though, if
it's
you
so
are?
much easier for me as like I've been an energy healer since I was 10 years old. So my trajectory of learning how to work with energy has been for my whole life. And it's just been different aspects of understanding how to work with energy. And now, like, at this time in this period of my life, I'm like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Okay, cool. So as like a person who has been exploring energy modalities for my entire life since I was 10 years old, I find it most potent to work in the quantum field at what we would perceive a distance of matter, but there is no distance,
Yeah,
right? So I can
yeah,
go so much further at any distance over any Zoom. If you're on planet Mars, I could dial in and we could be right here,
yes,
right?
yes,
And entangle.
instant,
So
yeah,
quantum entanglement doesn't require us to be in the same room.
yeah.
We can, facilitate from any distance. And yeah, so we all are. This is what I want to, really kind of outline and bring home. We are all computer programmers, programmers, right? Biocomputation. And we're programming ourselves in the level of light and sound with our emotions and sensations and experiences. Now we're back to that equation, and from matter to antimatter, reprinting. We're always doing it. So when you're working with me, I'm bringing to awareness that actual computer programming, and I'm like, okay, let's take control of this. Let's not keep reprogramming the computer, the biofield, to be
Mm,
experiencing this certain thing. Let's
mm,
transmute it, because you're like, wow, why do I always date the same guy? Like, okay, that's something that you'll run into, right? You'll run into your friend or know someone, or you're like, maybe yourself, you'll experience like, wow, whenever I date someone, they're pretty similar, they're always kind of the same thing, same characteristics. It's like your computer, your biocomputer is being programmed by
yeah,
your thoughts and your actions and your patterns and
yeah.
your, all of it. So we all are programmers. We just don't remember that we have the access to the programming, and we
Mm,
can repattern and reprogram.
and that's why everybody who is watching today is super lucky to figure out, like, or you have brought to their awareness that they are the programmers of their life, and it's impacting us, influencing us on so many different levels, not just like you just mentioned, it's not just on our health, but it's also on your relationships, for example, the situations in your life, the circumstances that are repeating, whether you are in lack or whether you are in abundance, like whatever that is
Yes.
to you.
Yes.
And so, it's just all part of the programming, because at any moment we can have what we want to have if we decide to have it. But if we are not aware that there are some subconscious programs that are running in the background, they are keeping us from having what we actually desire, what we want, because we haven't dealt with them. And this is why it's so important to work with somebody like Lauren, because she can help you to tap into. Can people like figure this stuff out by themselves? Is there some way that they can, if they didn't
Well,
work with you, for example, is there some way that they could do something like right now?
yes, because we're always doing it, and it's awareness, right?
Yeah.
However, funny, I can work with you. Like if I was in a session with you, Andreas, I could be very objective. And when I'm muscle testing, I'm not putting my bias on it, because I want it. For example, if I'm like, okay, I like a cup of coffee in the morning, I'm going to muscle test and see if this is good for me. And then I'm going to yeah, this is good for me, because I'm putting my own bias on the
Yes.
coffee because I want it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when I'm working with somebody, I remove my bias. I'm just very objective. But when I need to work on myself, I work with a colleague, a biomagnetism colleague, because I'm like, can you just witness this? Because I'm in a, I'll set up a session for myself, and then I'll get involved emotionally, and I'll be like, oh gosh, I can't figure it out.
I see. So it's easier when someone else does it to you.
It's like sometimes I'm like, I work with one of my colleagues a lot, and I'm like, can you just witness this with me? Because I can do it myself, but I just need a witness. I need a witness. And then I also need somebody to have, let's dial down. What is this coffee actually doing? Is this kind of a negative pattern that I'm refusing to look at because I have certain wants, or, I'm clouded with the programming, and I could also transmute this coffee into whatever I want. If I remove and work on the triggers that trigger, like if I have a program that's like, coffee is bad, it's going to ruin my life, then it will. You know what I mean?
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Anything that we want.
Yeah, I've been looking at things like this lately, like, for example, coffee can be a poison, but it can also be a medicine depending on how you use it or if you abuse it. The same thing with alcohol, right? We tend to think of alcohol as bad, but like alcohol in the right dose, or even used as a tincture, with like a herbal remedy in it or something, can be like incredible. So it just, it really depends on the context, really.
Well, yeah, the sun could kill you if you went to the the desert in July and then were stuck out there and didn't have any water, you would die. But if you can use the sun to heal yourself too, right? So it's like everything proper balance, but like it's also connected into there's a physicality to it, but then there's also a mental. So if this was, so my colleague was telling me that she didn't have any creamer one day, and it was just this like BS creamer with a bunch of crap in it that like nobody wants to. And she transmuted the light and sound of the creamer, and she's like, and then I just drank it and it was fine. Because some of the like another avenue that in a session with me your body might take us down is like allergies that are intangible or to the physical, right? Because why is one person allergic to strawberries and another person strawberries aren't really a problem? Strawberries that are a problem for somebody, that allergy could be connected into an emotional response. So we have to heal the root cause of that emotional response, and we can transmute the allergy, right? So, I mean, I don't know if I would be interested in drinking like BS creamer every day, with all those like weird oils and all the weird shit. But
you have to put a lot of intention behind to all the time transmute that idea or the thought and reprogram. It's kind of hard. It's nicer to work with things which are more in alignment with the truth, or what we call the truth. We believe to be the truth, that something is good for us, for example, and therefore it's so much easier to go with that rather than to all the time have to rewrite the story.
Absolutely. Yep.
Talk to me how biomagnetism improves or restores metabolic health.
So okay, you can look at your metabolic health from like the physical, and your metabolic health from the physical is how you metabolize your food, how you metabolize the light, how you're metabolizing physicality. There's also an aspect of your metabolics that is how you metabolize your experiences, right? And so that goes back to like the example with like, why is one person allergic to strawberries and another person isn't? Because I always like to bring it back to here's a really good metaphor. I was once in like at a spa with like hot tub and cold tub, for example, and we were all kind of 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and be like, yay, this is super fun. And one lady got into the cold tub and she was like, oh my god, and she was like freaking out and kind of disrupting the whole cold tub, and we were all chilling, and we were just like, okay. And then I was thinking, you know, I wouldn't want this lady like in a crisis in my life. And maybe did we talk about this? I don't know. We might have on the Quantum Connection Roundtable. But anyway, she was not metabolizing the experience very well, right? She was freaking out. It was causing probably her heart rate, her nervous system. Everything was reading her cues of freak out, freak out, freak out, freak out, freak out. And it was happening physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, all at the same time. So to your question, working in the level at the level of the, you know, bioenergetics, quantum bioenergetics, it's helping to take those programs that cause a lack of proper metabolization of your experiences, so that then can follow suit in your physical metabolic experience, right? If you can't digest life, you can't digest your food. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally. Because so many people don't understand how our mind and our experiences is literally impacting our nervous system state, which is therefore, if you influence your nervous system, obviously you're going to change what type of metabolism you're using. That's going to influence your physical metabolism, what you said, you described as metabolizing your physicality, which I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, like metabolizing your experiences, that's something that people didn't do really well 4 years ago, did they?
No. But you know, that could be a memory from like our ancestors experiencing the Spanish flu, right? And we have memory. And so we have to transmute that memory so that in this now moment, we could, you know, imagine if we bioenergetically worked out our memory of past pandemonia, and we could remove that patterning or transmute that patterning, and then it happens in the future. And then we're like, oh, now we can metabolize this.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to, in our metabolization energetically, we're going to make different choices and create different reality, therefore. But to your original question, how does biomagnetism apply to your metabolics? If you have a bunch of patterns that you don't know exist, you are always going to be like, oh, in the cold tub, oh my God, I'm freaking out, I don't like this, you know, like, but that's a pattern, that's a template, and it's probably installed based on a trauma or a conflict shock moment, like a moment in experience, whether it's in your own experience. So I look at everything. Is this body having this conflict because of something it experienced in this lifetime, something that it experienced in a parallel life, or something that an ancestor experienced that is also, you know, a parallel life or a past life or whatever you want to say? And where is the set point of the inability to metabolize this, and how can we shift the perspective so we can therefore metabolize it, and then our physical metabolism starts to harmonize, and we can, you can't be metabolically flexible if you're in an emotional basket case that can't, you know, metabolize experiences based on trauma.
Yes, I love it, because basically what you're saying is that what I've understood from what you just said is that there are multiple types of metabolism, not just our physical metabolism, which is processing the food, the light, the, you know, the electrons that we are receiving. We are processing emotions, experiences, life events. And if those are undigested, or if they don't go down very well, we're going to trigger all kinds of responses on the energetic level, which is going to impact us on a physical level.
Yes.
So yeah, it's super important for people to understand this information. I think it's absolutely vital. I would like us to move into minerals. Tell me, like, because I know that you're quite the expert on this topic because of your own like personal health struggles. So tell me, why are minerals important, and then why are they essential to understand?
So minerals, you know, we're looking at like how we metabolize energy, and our minerals, I look at them like they're like the elementals, the elements, the elementals of our experience. So we need biochemically minerals to run the enzymatic processes in our body, right? Cellularly and also, below, which is, quantum biologically and overall for the system, right? So the way I studied minerals, I studied with Morley Robbins, and he taught me about oxygen metabolism. So either you're making, when you're metabolizing oxygen, which is energy, you're either going to make exhaust or make energy, right? And then it gets into the mineral balance of everything, kind of like works towards that biochemical equation of metabolizing oxygen, right? The minerals of our electrolytes, for example, magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, all of that in balance. And then, the masters, iron and copper, that manage oxygen metabolism at cytochrome C in the electron transport chain, right? Which is also just the transmutation of turning oxygen into water, which is a quantum biological event, right? So it all works together. And but then I can also get into the energetics of mineral imbalance in the emotions, which would lead us into our holographic experience. So if you're iron toxic in your physicality, you're iron toxic in your ether, in the ether that is you, in the energetic, and this is a lack of metabolization of energy energetically, right? So it's not just a physical thing, although it is, and we can tend to it physically. But if you have patterns that are, for example, very discordant, you will continue to manifest the imbalance in the biochemistry, because the discordance is in the etheric body, in the energetic body. There's multiple bodies, and the iron overload, for example, could be all the way up into the energetics, and you're never really going to solve it in the physical if you've got it dysregulated in the energetic. Does that make sense?
Totally, because from everything that we just said previously, it has built this image in my head right now, this understanding that when I ask you a question, I know that it's not happening only on a physical level, it's happening on every level. I am kind of asking it more as in a simple way so the audience can understand it, because I'm really understanding what's happening right now.
Yeah, so when something is happening in your physicality, it most likely happened as a fracture in your energetic.
Yes.
So to attend to just your physical body is probably where most people get stuck, and they're like, I don't know why my iron's not balancing, my quantum biology is like dysregulated. I don't get it. I'm doing the light, I'm doing all the things, I don't understand. Because the problem originated in the energetic body, which then is, you can look at it from like the terminology of the DNA coding. You can look at it from, the patterns that organize your light and sound, that is the reality, that is you, that includes your physical. So sometimes we have to work on the energetic first or last, however you want to look at it, because it trickles down into the physical. Right? The physical is the last to be disrupted. And when you have a problem physically, you have big problems energetically that have trickled down into the physical finally. So you have to delete all the way up to the source, so that you can feel the physical go back into harmony.
I'm really happy that you said that, because it just all makes so much more sense when you put it in sort of in an order of how it sort of manifests itself. And back to what we were saying previously, how how light and sound and shape has this specific frequency, so do the minerals have this energetic imprint slash frequency, sound, light, geometry, which is having this bidirectional relationship. So if the energy of a certain mineral in your auric energetic field is out of balance, it will influence your physical mineral balance, even though you're trying to supplement or do all the things, but it's somehow not coming into coherence. That's what you're saying.
Yes. And you have you're made up of those elements from the table of elements. You have physical ones that make your physical body, and then we have the rest of the table that makes the environment around us. This is the whole symphony of reality, right? So it could be a discordance in the physicality of your body from the inside out, but then it also could be a discordance in the environment that is disrupting from the elemental level, right? The element of I mean, there's so many mineral, like just a specific element. I mean, I'm really looking at it meta here, right? The element of an environment causing this cup to appear, this thing to appear. It's all appearing. It's like holographic. It's not really real, but it is. And we're experiencing it. But that's part of our human body and also our environment. So there could be a discordance in the organization of elements. And they interplay, right? The discordance of the body interplays with the environment, and back and forth, right?
Yes. I would like for you to go into the story about copper is deficient and iron is toxic a bit more deeper for us, so we can really understand this.
So how I learned it is that, we're the magic of our energy production, right? It's kind of a magical quantum event. Is happening in the electron transport chain at cytochrome C, right? And that is where we're turning oxygen into water, which is easy water in our systems, and we're either making exhaust by doing that or making energy by doing that. Now everything is complex, right? You've got to factor in, what fuel are you burning? Are you burning carbohydrates? Are you burning fat as fuel? What is the state of your recycling system? How can you recycle energy? If you're not recycling it, you're going to have a buildup of exhaust, right, and inflammation, and it's like you're burning the wrong fuel, kind of a thing. And but it could be looked at as iron not being balanced with copper. But in that cytochrome C, in the electron transport chain, when we're changing iron oxygen to water, we need both copper and iron to be coupled in a specific balanced way, so that we can make energy by that quantum event. That happens like biochemically. The ceruloplasmin in the liver is what is called, the bioavailable copper that then chaperones the iron in that travels the oxygen around the body, so that in that fourth phase we can transmute into water. So if you have too much iron and not enough copper, then you get overload and exhaust and oxidative stress, and everything, your energy production is like, it's like a dirty factory where you're like, whoa, we're really burning the diesel fuel here, and it's causing inflammation, etc. But if you're burning clean fuel and you're burning energy, and you've got access to your bioavailable copper via your ceruloplasmin, which is a protein in the it's a multifactorial protein in the liver that makes the copper bioavailable, so that you can have that event happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, so basically the availability of the copper is dependent on the liver health, or how does the deficiency?
Yeah, the ceruloplasmin in the liver is where that is going to make because you talk to people and they're like, no, I'm copper toxic. Copper is bad. But like, yeah, copper that's unavailable and iron that's unavailable are both bad. We need it to be bioavailable forms of copper so that it can do that transmutation from into water and right. So sometimes when it's not getting when it's not available, it's like not getting into the cell or it's getting stuck in the cell. You know, I'm just simplifying it, but you know, you're not able to make clean fuel. That you're not your oxygen metabolism, which is your energy production, right? You're not able to make clean fuel, and you have a bunch of like inflammatory byproduct of the experience. Yeah.
So if somebody is taking, let's say, external forms of copper and iron, that's in an inactive form, therefore it's bad for the system. Yes?
I would say yes, I would say so.
I understand now why Morley Robbins also says that as well, because I wanted to understand why is it, because I hear, you hear that Morley Robbins talking and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go head out to the pharmacy. I'm going to go and buy some copper straight away. I'm going to start downing high amounts of copper. And then this is when people start to say that it caused me all kinds of issues. And then copper is toxic,
In the root cause protocol, he is not into you taking iron as a supplement. And I was an outlier to the entire RCP. I also use the RCP as a step in my wellness. But I was bleeding, meaning losing iron, more than the average human being. And I was definitely a candidate for like, wow, your, excuse me, your tank is on empty. We've got issues. You need supplementing right now. And I was like, no, I'm going to build it naturally because that's, when you add in inorganic iron to the system, it's not going to magically do what it's supposed to do at cytochrome C. It doesn't work like that. It does not, cannot allocate. It doesn't work like that. So you have to work at the mitochondrial level, everything that you speak of, Andreas, like you have to work at the mitochondrial level to encourage the ATP production within you to be facilitated. And the way the RCP is designed is with natural whole supplementation in its whole complex form, not in isolate. And in complex form, you might need some more vitamin C because you're taking a whole molecule and there's tyrosinase in the center, which is a copper molecule, and it's got the copper inside of it. You might need that because you might be devoid of it, right?
Yes.
You might need certain, I think we all need to supplement magnesium and salt and potassium. We all need that on a regular basis. Like it's the only, magnesium is the only supplement that is like, okay, we can, but I still get it from natural sources, from seawater.
Yes.
But you may need certain raw supplies at the biochemical level, vitamins, nutrients, and minerals, but they are all working in balance. It's the same as the torus field, but now we're looking at minerals, right? Like vitamin A and vitamin D. You can't have a conversation about vitamin D without involving vitamin A, for example. It's on a seesaw. Calcium and magnesium, these work together. You can't just be like, oh gosh, I don't have any calcium. I think I'm going to toss in some calcium, and then all of a sudden your magnesium's like, it's like you put a little kid and a fat guy on a seesaw. You're going to mess up the seesaw, and the little kid's going to like fly off, right? You don't want that. It's everything is in balance, just like negative and positive of your torus field. Same with the biochemistry. So sometimes you might. For example, when I first started taking magnesium because I was bankrupt, I was like, whoa, this is too much. And my body was like giving me, I am very intuitive about my body, was saying, we need more sodium and potassium before you start dumping in all of this magnesium, because we don't have the sodium and potassium to meet it. And it's making, I felt anxious, and I was like, oh my God, so anxious.
Interesting.
Why is it screaming to me when I'm taking it? So I had to dial it down, build up more sodium and potassium, and kind of play with my chemistry. It's like, you know, you don't want to, you're like, oh, we need cake. I know, we're missing flour. Dump a bunch of flour, and then you got like just a birthday cake made out of flour. It's gonna be the worst cake ever, and it's gonna suck. You know, like, you can't just dump something in. You have to make a proper combination of ingredients, because you're a total system in balance, and the cake might need a little more flour, and it might need a little more baking soda. It might need a little less because now it's coming out flat. You know, let's look at it that way. So minerals are important, but this is an N1. This is very specific to your situation. What's going on with your cake?
Yes, exactly. Well, this whole discussion has been about reclaiming your health sovereignty, you know, and it's been about you taking ownership of your health and realizing that we all have so much power within. And, you know, we have so many awesome individuals like yourself and many people around the globe who practice these amazing like healing modalities, which are working on the foundational levels, which many people maybe don't know or consider foundational, but clearly they are foundational to our physicality. And it's really, really cool how we went from all the way up there or down there to this level where we are right now, to our physicality. So it's really, really cool. Thank you so much, Lauren. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure that everybody's minds were absolutely mind blown. And so I would like for you to tell people where they can find you, connect with you, and work with you.
Yeah. So I have a new website. It's bellagusta.com, BELAGUSTA. And that is a combination of, I also make skincare.
I forgot to ask you about your skincare.
I also make skincare. So I have a range called Bella Nectar, and that's BELANEKTAR. And I just finished a website that is the wellness platform that also includes the skincare. So it's Bella Gusta, the platform, Bella Nectar, the products. And on the Bella Gusta site, you can connect with me. There is space to connect private one-to-one. And then I'm also creating group experiences that are unfolding in 2025.
Awesome. Can you send me those links after our live so I can add those in the description of the podcast?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll also invite you as a collaborator on this live after we finish, so it will be shared on our platforms, and then I will be posting this on Spotify and YouTube probably in 2 weeks after Kelly's podcast.
Awesome. So wonderful to speak with you, Andreas. You're so much fun to talk to.
Oh my God, yeah. I have had so much fun, really. Like, I've just been learning, and I'm sure everybody will as well. So everybody who's managed to make it this far in this podcast episode, like, well done to you, you know, because this is like so much information. It's like a Bible in like 1 or 2 hours. I don't even know how long we've been going.
Yes, listen, you have a Bentley, and this Bentley is the infinite you, but you're also in this like very intricate, amazing biological suit. And we have to know, gone are the days when we just go and ask the doctor, like, help, it's not working, what should I do? We have to actually become the mechanics of our own Bentleys so that we can keep them running and really honor the amazing biotech that we are. You know, we took this on, so we need to learn. And it's amazing to be alive right now because we're all getting in the game of understanding the mechanics of these Bentleys that we get to so amazingly inhabit.
And experience. experience. Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's epic. Words of wisdom right there.
This is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.